Welcome back to the Piston Jack YouTube channel. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the NBA's most intriguing player who resides in Detroit, and we'll also touch on ESPN's grade of the Pistons offseason. So let's get to it. About a week ago, Lowe, who's a very well-respected NBA analyst, not only amongst NBA fans and alike in media, but also within NBA front offices around the league. He had Howard Beck on and they spoke about their 10 most intriguing players for the upcoming NBA season. And I must admit, I was pretty excited to hear what I'm about to read out because Zach, in my opinion, is one of the more on-point analysts, I think, in NBA media in terms of he's really good with the X's and O's. And I think he's been, I'm sure most of these people who talk about the NBA for a living, everyone has their hits and misses, but I feel like Zach has a pretty good gauge on the type of successful younger players who are going to pan out. And it was good to hear him say this. So, quote, he said, "My single most intriguing player is Ausar Thompson. My number one reason for Detroit optimism this season is I just think Ausar Thompson has a chance to be really, really good and really good sooner than people think." And like I said, that got me excited because Zach has been pretty good at projecting these types of things in the past. And I obviously agree with him being a Pistons fan. And I've been talking about it a lot in this offseason, but Ausar Thompson last year didn't have an offseason. He couldn't do 5-on-5. He couldn't do any real one-on-one, anything that was competitive, playing real basketball physically against others. He could not do that the entire offseason. He was limited to only skill practice, I believe. He wasn't fully cleared for basketball activities, so to do whatever he liked until I want to say early November. And I believe he ended up coming back against the Raptors in late November. It was the game where Jaden Ivey hit the game winner. But I think this makes a lot of sense for Zach to have him as his most intriguing player because Ausar's impact is undeniable. And I've got some numbers here I'm going to dive into about the impact he had within the Pistons lineups and how much of a force he was. But on the season, if you look at the numbers for Ausar, this is a guy who, if you just look at the box score, he does have nights where he fills it up. But on the season, he averaged 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, almost 2 steals in 22 minutes a night. And he did so on 54% from the field and 64% from the line. 3-point shot got a little bit better, but only 22%. But we're not going to focus on that too much. But Ausar is the perfect example of a player whose impact goes so much beyond the box score. And he can even be having a game where you look at the box score, he's only got 4 points, maybe 4 rebounds, assists. He might even have a couple of turnovers. But his impact is undeniable, and it starts on the defensive end. And, everyone speaks a lot about the athleticism the Thompson's twins have, and they are certainly 1A and 1B in the NBA in terms of their athleticism amongst their peers. But Ausar defensively, and I've spoken to people who cover the NBA at large and who've watched the Thompson twins come up, and they will tell you, some of them, that Ausar, they think, is the better defender than Amen. Now, Amen clearly better offensively, but I think Ausar defensively has always been a little bit better. At least that's what people have told me who have followed them a lot closer as they've grown up. And Ausar, you saw it in the playoffs, it felt of course, Jalen Brunson got buckets on him and he got that famous one to seal the deal in Game 6 from 3, but for the most part, when Ausar Thompson was on the court, Jalen Brunson's life was extremely tough. And in a series the Pistons lost, Ausar had the best net rating on the Pistons team of anyone who played 10 minutes a game or more. He was a +6. And the thing I want to really focus in on here was his defensive rating of 103 was the 7th best of any player in the entire playoffs. Considering sometimes as well defensive ratings can favor centers and that kind of thing, that is a pretty impressive number for a guy in his first playoff series going against Brunson. He was matched up at times probably on Bridges. a really good team in the Knicks who went to, while they were a favorable matchup for the Pistons in a sense, they still went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And Ausar, it felt like whenever he was on the court, the Pistons were in good stead. Even if things offensively for Detroit, and I'm not just putting this on Ausar, weren't great. If Ausar was on the floor defensively, they were generating stops, they were getting out in transition. And, when you look at the lineup data for the Pistons in the playoffs, whether it's 2-man combinations, 3-man combinations, 4-man combinations, or even like 5-man combinations, Ausar features in all the top ones. For 2-man combinations, he's in all of the top 4 duos for the Pistons. Like whether it's Ausar Cade, Ausar Duren, Ausar Hardaway, they're all positive net ratings, and Ausar features in all of them. 3-man lineups, Ausar is in 6 of the top 7 for the Pistons. And all of them are positive. The thing here, he does not feature in any negative lineups. Ones that played 50 minutes or more. 4-man rotations, he's in the top 4 of 4-man lineups. He's in all of them. And then 5-man lineups, the Pistons starting 5 they ran with in the playoffs of Cade, THJ, Ausar, Tobias, and Duren. Of course, Ausar's in that. And that was the 4th best starting group or 5-man lineup in the entire playoffs. So his impact, and that, like in the playoffs, he pretty much had similar numbers to his regular season. 12 points, 5 boards, an assist, a steal on similar efficiency, 57% from the field and 58% from the line. Like, it's not like he was putting up, it wasn't even like he was generating 4 steals a game and getting out in transition. Like his game 5 was awesome. He had 22 points, but the game I was at, game 2, he fouled out, only had 2 points or 4 points maybe. It certainly wasn't a perfect playoff series for Ausar. And I say that in a complimentary way to be like, this guy was still just whenever he's on the court, Detroit are just way better. I don't even know, even the regular season, the Pistons' best 5-man unit by far, the only one that had a positive net rating to play 100 minutes or more, was the same lineup that started the playoffs, but of course it had Ausar. It's his impact defensively, and I think the physicality, the rebounding he brings Jalen Duren to another level. It's no coincidence that Jalen Duren's best stretch from 2025 onwards, Jalen Duren said himself, he flipped the switch with his motor, but I think him becoming more and more impactful player defensively coincided with Ausar Thompson coming into the starting lineup when Ivy went down with that broken leg, unfortunately. He unlocks Jalen Duren defensively. He kind of helps cover up JD's deficiencies and then helps JD, do what he's best at in rebounding the ball, rim protecting, and not trying to have to constantly, when it was THJ, Ivy, and Beasley playing all those minutes from 2 to 3, and even Ron to an extent, who was a rookie, it was just a turnstile for opposing guards to get through. But when you have Ausar there, he makes life so hard. And that just allows JD to roam a little bit more and not have to be on the defense or quickly out. It just allowed JD to be in better position. So he unlocks that. He thrives alongside Cade Ausar because he's going to take the opponent's the best perimeter defender on the other team. Offensive player. And then in transition, we know Cade loves throwing lobs. So obviously Ausar would generate the steal, Cade probably get it, throw a lob back up to Ausar. We saw that on repeat. I think Cade and Ausar as a screen and roll duo is something to really be excited about. And then even Cade, Duren, Ausar in the playoffs, Cade would run a pick and roll with JD or a handoff, hit JD on the roll, and JD would hit Ausar on the short roll, whether Ausar was in the dunker spot, cutting, or sometimes JD would even spray it out to a shooter. So there's some real synergy though between Cade, Ausar, and Duren on both ends of the floor. So yeah, I'm really excited about Ausar, and I know I gave you a lot of numbers there, but it just aligns with what Zach's saying. Ausar, if he can play 28 minutes and give you 70 games, I'm hoping he plays 82, but every player inevitably misses a couple of games. So let's say 75 games, 28 minutes a night. I think the Pistons, with Jaden Ivey coming back and, filling that 2-man role and taking a step himself, I think if Ausar just continues to improve and he's just on the court more, that is a big reason that Zach's highlighting it for why he's so intrigued. But I think that's a big reason why I'm sneaky high on the Pistons this season. I think this is a big reason they can win 50 games or close to 50 games or more and take another step is because they're going to have Ausar Thompson back. He's dealt with that blood clot injury, and I think he's going to be huge in their success because, like I've just read out, his impact is undeniable. The box score doesn't mean much for Ausar. He will fill it up. Some nights he won't, but either way, you know you're getting A+ defense and a guy that's going to, fit everything you push culture-wise and how you want to play. So I'm really excited about Ausar. We're going to wrap it up here just talking about, and of course, drop your comments below, like, is Ausar the most intriguing player for the Pistons this upcoming season? Is he the key to taking them to the next level? Obviously, we know Cade's the superstar and they go nowhere without him, but I think behind Cade, like if Ausar can take that leap, look out. But you let me know which player that is for you. But let's move on. So ESPN did their off-season grades probably a week and a half ago, and they gave the Pistons a C. And I want to talk about this because I disagree slightly, but just briefly, the Pistons so far this offseason, they still have 2 roster spots available. They have added Duncan Robinson on 3 years, $48 million, Caris LeVert on 2 years, $29 million, re-signed Paul Reed to a 2-year, $11 million deal. They drafted Chaz Lanier, signed Colby Jones to a 2-way. They re-signed Dennis Jenkins to a 2-way deal, and they received a $14.3 million traded player exception and a 2026 second-round pick from the Kings in the sign and trade for Dennis Schroeder, who they lost him, obviously. They also lost Tim Hardaway Jr., Simone Fontecchio, and Malik Beasley is currently not on an NBA team because of the investigation. So for me, a C is a little low. I think a lot of people would say a C because I think a lot of people think the Pistons are going to stay. I think a lot of fans will say they just kind of replaced what they lost, which I think is true. But I actually think whilst they may have lost a slight bit of shooting, I do think they have gained a lot of size. Duncan Robinson, 6'7", 6'8". Caris LeVert, 6'6". Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. is only like 6'4", 6'5". Beasley's like 6'3", 6'4". And even Schroeder's only like 6'1", 6'2". So I think you gain some size. And I know Fontecchio is like 6'8", but Fontecchio wasn't really part of the rotation in the end, especially in the playoffs. So I think Duncan Robinson will replace what Malik Beasley does, just in terms of volume shooting from deep. And I think Robinson can do a little bit more of the dribble in terms of, like, he's got a nice float game, and I think you'll see his passing is quite underrated and something he's gotten better at. Malik was just a pure bucket getter and was really good at it for the Pistons, but I'm not sure Malik was going to replicate that. I think Caris LeVert gives you a lot of what Dennis Schroeder gave you, to be honest. Like, he just does it at 6'6" as opposed to 6'2", and I think he gives you more lineup flexibility. Like, I think you could never really play Ivy, Schroeder, Cade. Like, you can do 3-guard lineups, but you're a little bit small. I think you can play Ivy, Cade, LeVert, Ausar, LeVert, Ivy, Cade. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with him lineup flexibility wise, and I think he's better defensively than any player you lost at 6'6". And I think getting that traded player exception, obviously the Pistons have got to do something with that, but I think the fact they have that is more of a bonus in my opinion. So I like them bringing back Big Water Paul. I think potentially it would have been nice to get a 7-footer, but I'm not sure who was really out there. You might say Brook Lopez, but I think he was always going to go to LA. Like, at some point, it's like, unless you're going to offer him the mid-level of $14 million, like, you're probably not getting a guy like Brook Lopez. And certainly weren't going to get DeAndre Ayton to come off the bench. So I think a C is a little low. I'm probably at a B-. I think, like I said, lost a little bit of shooting, but maybe Chaz Lanier can bring that. But I'm not counting on that. And we'll see. They obviously have to sign one more player. They have to. You have to have 14 players come opening night. So we'll see who that is. I don't expect that to happen the next couple of weeks, but maybe it happens in early September. But let me know your grade. Like I said, I'm a B-. ESPN's a C. A lot of fans thought that was fine. Like I said, I disagree a little bit, but you let me know what grade you would give the Pistons. I'd love to hear it. Until next time, as always, go Pistons.